Hello there, Tracy Filter here with Tracy's Ink Spot. Thank you so much for joining me for another Fun Fold Friday. Today I'm going to show you a project called a bay window fun fold. First I'm going to go through and show you what I'm using to create my project. In the January to June 2022 mini catalog from Stampin' Up! On page 14 and 15 you can see the entire Flowering Fields collection. There's 2 different stamp sets, bunch of accessories, and some really beautiful designer series paper. What I'm going to be using today are the tulips. Those, you can see them a little closer on the next page, page 16. So I'll have a few stamps from this piece here. I'm going to be using some of the dies, and as well as the gorgeous designer series paper. So here is one side. You can see all these lovely colors. You've got corals and poppy, and then you get into the purples like heather, blackberry. Just lovely, lovely, lovely tulips. I like this one in particular, and this is actually the sheet I'm going to be using today, the one with the field of different colors. And then I'll flip these over really quick so you can see the back side is kind of artsy, shaded different colors. It's got a little bit of that worn look to it. You've got a couple pieces there that look almost like clouds. So that is the opposite side of those. So love, love, love this tulip paper. And again, like I said, I'm going to be using this sheet here. I'm going to be using a portion cut across the top. So what I'm using today is the portion that you see on this right side. And then I'll show you my sample that I pre-made that has the one from that piece as well. All right, so here's a little closer look at the dies and the stamp set. Now some of these dies will cut out the stamped images like the leaves and stems and the flowers, and then there's other ones that are just additional parts. So you can use these tulip parts to cut out from designer series paper or cardstock and then build an actual 3-dimensional tulip using those, and it's really, really pretty cool, and I'll be showing you how to do that today. Alrighty, so let's get started. Here is what you're going to need to do your bay window fun fold. You need a card base that is 4 1/4 inches by 11. I'm going to be using a thick whisper white. I'll go through the scoring parts as I go, so don't worry about looking at that right now. You need another piece of cardstock that is 3 3/4 by 4 1/8. I'm going to be using Highland Heather. You need a piece of designer series paper that's 4 1/8 by 6. And I already started cutting that one by accident. So there's my 4 1/8 by 6, and then I'll go through more of the cutting arrangements or cutting directions with you as we create. Then you're going to need some kind of tag or shape that's approximately 1 1/4 by 2 1/2. I, from Basic White, cut a piece, or punched a piece from Label Me Fancy. And I did another one that is going to be used for focal point on the front of the card. So you can see I asked you to find some kind of focal point that's no larger than about 1 1/2 inches wide. So I have parts of a tulip and I have another tag, and I'll show you what I'm going to be doing with those as we create. All right, and then if you end up with this piece of cardstock being a little darker, or you want to definitely have a neutral piece to be able to stamp or write on, that particular size that you're going to end up wanting is 3 1/2 by 3 7/8. All right, for assembly purposes, you're going to want a strong adhesive, some kind of either glue or a strong adhesive like Tear and Tape or Seal Plus. You need inks and phrases and images, etc., to match your designer series paper. And then any accessories you would like rhinestones or pearls or ribbon or something like that to embellish as you go. All right, I will keep this kind of handy as I do the scoring part and the cutting part, so you can see those dimensions still up on the screen. All right, so bring in your paper trimmer. And the first thing, we're going to go back to our card base, and we're going to score it at 3 1/8. And if you have a trimmer like this one from Stampin' Up, the 3 3/8, not 3 1/8, 3/8 inch is easier to count on this particular side of that, the cutting edge. So we've got 1, 2, 3/8 of an inch, and make sure you're using your scoring blade. Alrighty, now the other ones I'm going to flip it and go this direction because I need larger numbers. So we did our 3/8. Now you want 1 7/8. So 1 7/8. Okay, and then we're going to do 3 5/8. 5. And again, go through a couple times just to make sure, if you've got a thicker cardstock, you want to make sure you've got a nice crease in there. And then you want 5 1/8. and then 5.5, which I've already done, and that is going to be the fold for the center of the card like you would normally have on a standard card front. So as you can see, this is going to turn into a standard size card that will fit our standard sized envelopes. Okay, so set your trimmer aside for a second, and let's go ahead and do those scorings on those lines that we just scored. Okay, so the first one I'm going to do is actually the center point, just to make sure we've got a really nice crease going there. Okay, then at this 3/8 mark, you're going to want to bend it backwards. Give that a good score. Now these next two are going to fold the same direction. You're going to fold forward and forward again at that 3 5/8. And then again at the 5 1/8, it's going to come back this direction. Okay, so you should end up with something that looks like this. So you've got two little strips here and here, and then kind of a tented space right there. Okay, and that's how you're going to want to do those score lines. Then we're going to go ahead and get your really strong adhesive. Like I said, you can use tear and tape, or you can use glue, and you're going to want to run that down this little skinny part right here. Actually, I'm going to grab a little dark cardstock to put behind that. Maybe I'll be able to see better. Okay, you're going to run that right in here. So example, if I'm using my glue, I'm just going to take and run a little piece right there. If you're doing tear and tape, put your tear and tape in that spot right there, and then fold that over and give that a good burnish, either with your fingers or your bone folder. Okay, so now it's going to open kind of like a book fold. That's going to stay down permanently, and that's going to help prop that up once we are all done. All right, set that aside, and let's work on the cutting parts. Okay, so for this piece of cardstock that you have, that's 3 3/4 by 4 1/8, we're going to cut two pieces off of either the left or right side, doesn't matter, that are both 1/4 inch wide. Okay, so you're going to take it to 1/4 inch. Whoop, I think it slipped when I put that down. I'm going to use this other side again. It's a little easier. All right, there we go. So there's one piece and two pieces. All right, so now you have 3 different pieces that you've cut from that cardstock. So you're going to leave this piece intact, and then you have the 2 pieces that are 1/4 inch long. Set those aside. Alrighty, then for your designer series paper, like I said, I got a little cutting happy, and I cut the first piece already. So there is your 4 1/8 by 6 inches piece of designer series paper. So first, from either edge, you decide based on what you want. The idea that we're going to end up with here is that you're going to have like a panoramic piece of designer series paper. So I liked the way that this flowed this direction. So this particular piece here is the first piece I want to cut off that's going to go on the inside. So I'm going to flip it around, and then I took it over to 1 5/8, which is right there, and then I cut. Okay, so that's my 1 5/8 inch piece that I took off the right side. All right, now looking back at this piece now, we're going to cut that into 3 separate panels. I'm going to start at the left, and I'm going to do that one at 1 3/8. So 1, 2, 3. And then again at 1 5/8. 4, 5. And then that remaining piece is also going to be a 1 3/8. So you have 2 that are the same size and one that's just a little bit larger. Now keep those in order, so that when you're ready to put them on your panels, they stay in the order that you wanted them to be. Okay, now for the inside portion, I am going to stamp my focal points for the inside, and then there's a focal point for the outside. So this is my tag shape that I'm going to put on the inside, and you'll see where that goes in just a minute. But I'm going to show you a trick for breaking down your stamps. I want to use this stamp here that says Happy Mother's Day, but as you can see, my tag is really not that wide. I'm going to be using it vertically, so it's not going to fit that way. So I'm going to take my Highland Heather ink pad, and what I'm going to do first is I'm going to take a Post-it note, and I'm going to cover up the word day and the word happy, so that when I put it down in my ink pad, oopsie, it helps if you don't drop it first. All right, the beauty of live television. Okay. I'm going to put that down in my ink pad. Then it's only highlighted the word mothers. Take these pieces off. This is a very important step, otherwise you will get ink all over where you don't want it to be. And pardon me if my head gets in the way, because I need to see what I'm doing here. Okay, So there's Mother's. Then you're gonna wanna grab your cleaner, your stamp cleaner, which I left off camera. All right, clean off that part really good. And then you drop your stamp on the floor, which again is not helpful. Okay, back to the stamp, here we go. So the next one you're gonna do is cover up Mother's Day, and you'll just have happy left. And I'm gonna bring that, again, excuse my head, and you just wanna make sure it's gonna turn out somewhat in the middle. Pretty close. All right, there's happy. Again, clean off your stamp. Now we're gonna go the other way, and we're gonna cover up the word Happy Mothers, so that all we have left is day. And again, remember, the most important part is removing that Post-it note when you're done. And then, of course, making sure that your stamp is the correct direction. Okay, so now I have Happy Mother's Day broken up and put down in the center. And trust me, if I'm looking directly over this, where you wouldn't have seen it, it'd be a little more lined up. But I'm gonna go with that because you'll see my finished one has it done a little bit better. Now, there's a little bit of white space left on my tag. So I think I want to add another little accent color. I'm gonna use Old Olive, and even though it's not a part of the color scheme that they list, I think it blends nicely between the Pear Pizzazz and the Evening Evergreen that they list as the colors on there. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of interest to that by adding those little tag parts, or those little X's. All right. Then for my focal point for the front, I have another tag again, same tag, the Label Me Fancy. And I am gonna go ahead and stamp that, another phrase from that stamp set that says, just thinking of you today. And that's gonna go right in the middle, like that. And then I'm gonna go ahead and do the same thing of adding just those little crosses or hash marks, pluses, whatever you wanna call them. And I'm gonna do that in the opposite color. Then of course I'm gonna use the purple, the Highland Heather. And just add a few around just to break up some of that white space. Oh, and it's upside down. There we go. Okay, now I'm going to assemble my tulip. So I die cut from the Simply Marvelous paper, DSP, that's part of the Celebration offering. There's one of these that's done in the purple tones, so that looks really, really cool. So here are two parts of my tulip. This part here has a little crease in it. You're just gonna fold over, like so, all right? And then I wanna give that just a little bit of dimension, literally, by putting a dimensional over here where that other side is going to meet it. And that gives me a little pocket that I can now insert my center. Okay, and because I've done this on this fun paper, I've got a couple different ways to go, and I think I really like the way that those two offset each other. So for this one here, I'm just gonna grab a glue dot and put that at the base of my center. And I like to take my piece to my glue dots and then take it off from there, rather than try to pick a glue dot off with my fingers. All right, so we're gonna drop that into there and just press down. And now you have your cute little three-dimensional tulip. And then I cut also a stem and a leaf out of Old Olive. And we're gonna go ahead and add that one. I'm gonna do that again with glue dots. So here is my stem. Again, going to the glue dots. And then I'm just gonna add that to the back side like so. Oopsie. Let me try that one more time. There we go. To the back side. And then this guy here is gonna need a couple of them. And I'm gonna put one at the very base of the leaf. And I'm gonna put one about where that edge goes. And then I'm actually gonna just kind of roll them a little bit to the left so that they're not sticking out quite so far, because they're gonna show through. My stem is not that big, not that wide, so I wanna make sure that you don't see glue dots sticking out. So kind of roll them, but if they're not stuck down too badly yet, you should be able to manipulate them. All right, and then that's gonna go like so at the bottom. Okay, so now I have my three-dimensional tulip. That's this, along with my tag, are my focal points for the front. Let me get rid of those messy guys. All right, there is my focal point for the inside. I'm gonna wanna put dimensionals down the back side of that in the middle. So a little one there, one there, one there. and I'll show you where that goes in just a minute. And I'm going to mount my tulip with dimensionals as well. I like to have that pop off the page a little bit. So this guy's going to get a couple of them to hold all those parts down. And then this tag is going to end up sitting on top of this one, but it'll need a dimensional on the other side of it, and I'll show you a trick for that in just a second. Okay, so let's get to assembly. All right, first I want you to grab that leftover piece of cardstock, and if you have a neutral piece you want to put on it, let's go ahead and adhere those together right now. And that's gonna go there and there. Okay, and then if you want to take that larger piece that you cut off initially, so the 1 5/8 piece that you cut off from one of the edges. These two parts are going to end up going on the inside of the card. Let me bring that up a little bit. So here and here. So you want to lay them out so that there's a little bit of a border around each side. And then you can go ahead and stick those down. So I'm going to start on the right side with my designer series paper. Again, you leave just a little bit of a border. And then this guy is going to go next to it, again, leaving a little bit of a border. There we go. All right, that's the inside of your card. You could do more decoration here if you'd like. You could do some stamped images or phrases, or that. Otherwise it's blank to show where you can write your note. Okay, then you're going to want to take the shape that you have your dimensionals on already, and that's going to go in the middle of this piece right here. So go ahead and remove those sticky bits from there. Okay, and like I said, that's just going to go right about in the middle of that one right there. Okay, now for the front part, we are going to take those two strips that we had here, and we are going to adhere those teeny tiny ones in the groove of this one and in the groove of this one. So again, if you want to use a little bit of glue, it's a very thin area. Might be a little easier to work with than trying to use a tape runner, because it's a very, very, very little space. All right, so let's get that right in there. And then another one for, whoopsie, over here. Okay, got my finger stuck. There we go. All right. So there are those two parts, and now as you might be able to tell, when you open this card, this little part can tuck under there, and then it will stand up, and you can see the pretty paper panoramic view that you're going to create on the front. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So those remaining three pieces, make sure again you have them in order, because they're going to go across the card this direction. So I'm going to go ahead with my first panel. Fingers are a little extra sticky because I had glue. All right, and it should be sized so you have just a little border all the way around. And then that larger piece goes in the middle where there's a little bit larger panel. And then obviously this one goes the last one. Alrighty, so then again, when you have this popped up, that is what you get. Okay, and again, when you can, whoever receives that then can stand it up and display it kind of like a piece of art. Kind of cute. Okay, we're going to dress up this middle part here now with your focal point. I'm going to go ahead and first put down the tulip that I made. And go ahead and remove those dimensional pieces. Sorry if I shook the table there for a second. Alrighty, so my tulip is going to go kind of in the center of that panel right there. And like I said, I'm going to want to put the just some regular adhesive on this end, and I want a dimensional to pop up here, but because that fold is in there, I need it to not go over too far because I don't want to end up sticking those pieces together. So I'm actually just going to stick the dimensional down directly onto the DSP, and then I know exactly where it's going to go, and then I can go ahead and run just that little bit of adhesive on this end. Take off my dimensional doodad and go ahead and stick that down. And now when I move it, you can see that's going to move right along with me. Okay, so there you go. That is how you create your bay window fun fold. So I'm going to go ahead and bring this in again so you can see better. you know, if you need to freeze it there and write down directions or something like that. So there's the one we made just on camera today. And like I showed you the designer series paper piece I was using. Started out with the pieces much closer together. So you can see it, would be it all the way across. Okay, so here's my version of that one. I basically did the same thing. I just used Mango Melody instead of the Highland Heather because this has more of the yellow tones in it, and I wanted to match those, whereas this has more of the purple tones, so I went with Highland Heather. All right, so same concept, the phrase on the front, just alternating the purple for the, I believe I used the So Saffron on there, Mango. Then this is the So Saffron piece from the Simply Marvelous 6x6 designer series paper that you can earn free with Celebration. Then I've got those 2 strips of Mango, and then as you can see I dressed up the inside of mine with one little tulip stamp, and I can show you how those guys line up together really nicely. You're going to take those 2 stamps there from that set, and I just need to grab my scrap piece of paper that I forgot to bring over before, so pause, sorry about that. Okay, here we go. All right, so if you're used to 2-step stamping, what you're going to want to do is I'm going to stamp it in the Highland Heather because that's what I have handy. Okay, so you are going to want to, there's already some shading already put into this, so you can use the same ink color, and you can decide if you want the outside first or the inside. I'm going to start with the inside piece because for me that's a little bit easier to see. And then I'm going to go back over it again, and you just want to line up at the bottom where those 2 pieces would meet. So there's your tulip there, and then you're going to do the same thing if you want to do, let's say, a stem and a leaf. So I'm going to take my old olive. Here's my stem. You would line that up under where the tulip would sit, and then you can use your leaf stamp, again meeting at the bottom, and there you have your pretty leaf. So if you wanted to stamp them first to cut them out, that is what you would like to, that's what it would look like for you to do so. Otherwise you can do the die cutting like I did, just out of plain cardstock. Alrighty, so I hope that you guys have fun creating this really cute bay window card. And if you have any questions at all, leave a comment on the video, or you can always visit my Facebook page, and there should be a post there about this as well. And you could leave a comment there, and I would be happy to answer your question. All right, thank you so much, everybody. Happy stamping!